Hey guys, and welcome back to Racist Britain. Oops, Freudian slip there. Welcome back to Brexit Britain. A country where if you are a person whose parents may have been born in a different country, our Asian Home Secretary wants to bring in laws that can remove your British citizenship and remove you back to your parents' country of birth. Perhaps that wasn't a Freudian slip at the beginning. Also, welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages you sent me, and a special thanks to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that have signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go through all the messages. I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all the messages for definite. So we have a story out of Uzbekistan. And everyone thinks to themselves, what the hell is he just making countries up now? No. Right, a story out of Uzbekistan, yeah, where this woman, right, you know, some things you hear and just think to yourself, is this really true? Right? But this woman, she's thrown her daughter over, her 3-year-old daughter, over a fence, right, into, right, the bear enclosure in the zoo. Right? Where there was a Caucasian brown bear. You know, that bear must be confused. That bear must be confused thinking, well, you know what, yeah, I'm a brown bear, but I'm like Caucasian, just well tanned. The bear's obviously confused anyway, right? But she's chucked her daughter right into the bear enclosure. So the bear's just walked over, right? Just, you know, casually walked over, right? Sniffed the child, right? The bear's name is Zuzu. The bear's name is Zuzu. Right, so Zuzu's walked over, sniffed the child, and thought, nah, I'm not really, because he must have just looked at the woman and thought, you know what, I see what your plan is. You got there's a planting here, isn't it? You want to get me shot, right? Like what happened to my cousin Bobo, right? When he killed that zookeeper last year, right? That's what you want to happen to me. Well, I know better than that. So the bear was just like, I'm not getting involved in none of that. And I'm just so the bear's just gone over to just gone over to the other side and just like I just started milling around the other side. You know what I mean? And the keepers have managed to get the, you know, to call the bear over and then get people in to go and get the little child out. So the only injuries the child had, yeah, was being hurled over the motherfucking fence by the mother. And you think to yourself, some people, but you know something, yeah, a man in San Diego last year, yeah, took his 2-year-old child, right, into the elephant enclosure to get a selfie. Now, you know, you hear all these stories, right, about people falling off of a mountain because they was taking a selfie, right? But one thing I can guarantee you, right, that there's going to be people in those people's personal life, right, who will say to you, yeah, no, well, yeah, it was Jake. Jake fell off the mountain. Yeah, well, you know something, right? If it was going to be anybody, out of everybody we know, it would be him. Because we all know people that like that. They would say, you know what? Do we really know people who's stupid enough to go into an elephant enclosure to take a selfie? Not just, you know, and with your child. You think to yourself, right? Yeah, the elephant decided to charge at him. I mean, you know, and I believe he made a lucky escape. But the elephants wasn't happy with him coming into their enclosure, you know, because because he was trying to, I believe he was trying to take a picture probably with like a Samsung or something like that. So, well, you know what, you really need to come in here with a smartphone, with an iPhone at least. Right? But no, you just think to yourself, what the hell, right, is up with these people? Do you know what I mean? To be messing about, yeah, with, you know, there's a reason why they put animals in the, you know, when they go to zoos, right? Which I don't go to because I don't agree with zoos. I don't agree with putting animals in cages, right? So I don't go to zoos, right? The only time I could have been to a zoo, right, was when I was like 5 or 6 years old, right? Because I would never take myself into a zoo. Do you know what I mean? I have a slight different opinion on, like, you know, on safari parks and that type of thing. Do you know what I mean? Where the animals have got a lot more room to be moving about in. Do you know what I mean? And like, you know, and or in like a monkey enclosure or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Where they've got much more room and they can live slightly better than they would be living in a zoo, in like, in them small enclosures, which is just, I don't like to see animals in that position, so I don't support zoos under any circumstances. Right. And yesterday, was a major anniversary, for the parachute regiment, right, who in 1970, on the 30th of January 1972, right, murdered 14 unarmed demonstrators, right, in Ireland, a date known as Bloody Sunday, right, where the parachute regiment lost their motherfucking minds and started opening fire on I often say to people, right, that these things, right, these things can happen to black people, they can happen to white people, they can happen to brown people, right? And when it is the authorities who do it to you, right, don't matter what colour you are, right, they'll cover that shit up. Doesn't matter what colour you are. Right, they knew who every one of these soldiers was, right, and none of these, I don't think any of these soldiers has faced, I know they tried to bring some criminal actions against them, like, 40 odd years afterwards or 30 odd years afterwards. I mean, after the event, you think to yourself, well, but it's the cover up, right, and that happens, right, whether you are black or white, doesn't matter, right. It's what you've got to understand, right. We've got Black Lives Matter, right? And you say there's a reason for that, and that is because the police, right? Whether it's Britain or America, right? They kill unarmed black people more than anything else. They kill white people. They will kill white people, but generally they'll be armed. Right, so that's what the difference is. That's the reason why we've got Black Lives Matter, because we're saying, well, you know what, you're killing far too many unarmed black people. That's what you're doing. I saw a video out of America a couple of days ago, right, where these police officers, right, there was this old black guy in a wheelchair, 60, I think he was like something like 67 years old, right, and so they wanted these three police officers needed to arrest him, right? So they literally dragged this guy out of his wheelchair, right? Thrown him on the floor, right? He's saying, well, what have I done? What, you arrested? What have I done? What, right? And they're shouting like, stop resisting. You know how they do. Do you know what I mean? If the minute if an American police officer puts their hand on you, the minute you like do anything, they're like, stop resisting, right? So these guys are stop resisting, right? And one of them's got their taser out, so he's got his taser pressed on this guy, right? Remember, this guy's 67 years old and he's in a wheelchair, and they've dragged him out of the wheelchair. So he's got his taser on him, right? And so he's pushing his taser onto his side, right? And all of a sudden he just starts. This police officer just starts tasing him, and you think, see, you can't understand why something like that could happen. Do you know what I mean? And that's the reason why we've got like things like Black Lives Matter. And if when you go to Bloody Sunday, right, and soldiers opening fire, right, on crowds of people who are peacefully demonstrating. I know that there might have been rocks and these type of things hurled at them, but unfortunately, when you bring soldiers in, right, to police in another country, right, tensions are always going to boil over. Because there's a difference, right? The people throwing rocks, they have a right to be there, right? The soldiers do not. Okay, the English soldiers had no right to be there in the first place, so they had no right to start opening up live rounds, right, on peaceful demonstrators, right? Whether those demonstrators are throwing rocks at you or not. Okay, what you need to do is put some shields up, right? If you're there in the first place, that's what you need to do, right? You don't need to start opening fire on innocent people, right? And people might say, oh well, there's the Irish in it. Well, these people look exactly the same as the soldiers, well, that are murdering them. They're all Caucasian, right? That's what I'm saying, right? So when the authorities, right, murder, right, whether it's the police, whether it's the army, right, it doesn't matter what colour you are, right? They will cover it up. It happens. It happens in Britain all the time, right? Black or white people getting killed in police custody, or just look at remember the newspaper seller. I'll give you examples. The newspaper seller, right? We all saw what happened to the newspaper seller, right? And the police. I mean, the police actually, because that guy, I believe he actually went for trial. That police officer, I believe he went for trial, but the court, right? He was found to be. I'm sure he got a not guilty. But so you have to look at that and say, well, this is a society. This is not just a police. This is not just an authority problem. This is a society problem as well. If you could look at what happened to that newspaper seller, right, and you couldn't find, right, that police officer, not guilty, then I'll say, well, that's the problem with society as well. There's a serious problem there as well. Do you know what I mean? Because even when police officers are brought up in this country on charges, right? There's often, right, juries let them go, and you think to yourself, what are they doing? Are they stacking the jury here? Is that what's going on? Are they stacking the jury with with people who are friendly to the police? Because that's what I think they're doing. I think they just pick out a jury, right? And a lot of these people can be like cousins of police officers, or wives of police officers, and stuff like that. Because remember, we have no clue who's on a jury. We're not allowed to know, right? So they could have been doing these things from ever since, because how the jury system's set up. It's not set up like how the American one is set up, right? Where after the case, the press can go and start interviewing the jury and all that. I've not seen that in this country. Not really seen that in this country at all. Do you know what I mean? So, and if there are any stories like that, it would probably be a jury member who's gone to the press after the case, right? And obviously, if they're fixing certain trials in such a way, right, that it's all people who are friendly or associated to the police on juries, right, to make sure that their people can always get the not guilty verdict. Because look, for example, right, in the Duggan case, the Mark Duggan case, right, the inquest, I think it's one of the juries, the inquest juries or something like that, right, found, they found in the police's favour, right, that they said, although Mark Duggan, right, was not in possession of a gun at the time when the police shot him, right, it was the shooting was still lawful. That's what that was a jury. That was, I think it was the inquest jury or something like that. Do you know what I mean? To see if they could bring any charges. Do you know what I mean? But so they said no. The inquest jury said no. Well, we find that the shooting was completely legal. And you think, well, how can it be legal to shoot someone who hasn't got a gun? That can't be legal. that can't be legal in any way at all, to use lethal force on someone who hasn't got a gun. That's ridiculous. But they got away with it. Do you know what I mean? So that's what so I'm always trying to explain to people. Do you know what I mean? That, like, don't think just because we've got Black Lives Matter, right? That we're only thinking about that black people that get murdered by the police, right? There is the fact that it don't matter if it happens to white people; they'll cover it up the same way. Because that's what they do. Do you know what I mean? That is just it. And Bloody Sunday, right, is a perfect example of that. Do you know what I mean? Because I saw some of the people being interviewed who was there on the day of Bloody Sunday, right? And a lot of them were saying, well, thinking perhaps charges can still be brought against some of these stuff, but 50 years on. Do you know what I mean? The British government, there's no appetite, and even if they did try, right, it would be the public over here, there'd be a major outcry. Oh, they're so woke. Because what it's like. We have a war on woke. So that means we have a war on being nice to others. That's Britain, Brexit Britain, right? And you know, do you know what? On GB News, right? There was interviewing Winston Churchill. Do you know? I saw a video from like Maximilian, right, who you should watch him because he is really class actually, Maximilian, right? And he described it as GB News jumping the shark. I just can't think of any other term for myself. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what these fuckers have done. These guys have lost their motherfucking minds. They're interviewing Winston Churchill impersonator as if he was Winston Churchill. I'm like, what? I was like, what the? I was like, at least, right, what they should have done, get some old clips of Winston Churchill, right, and make it look as if to say the interviewer of today is interviewing Winston Churchill and try and get some appropriate answers that he could fire back at them. But no. Oh, you know what? Yeah, get his grandson in, Nicholas Soames. Or is it Sir Nicholas? Get Nicholas Soames in to speak about Winston Churchill. You think to yourself, what is going on in GB News? I'm going to ask them, GB News, what the motherfucking hell is going on up in there? Right, seriously, what the hell are you people doing? Right? Seriously, I don't. It's like, well, you know what? And now we have footballer Mason Green, who's been arrested for rape and assault. Right, after a woman has posted some videos or some pictures or something like that on social media, and so he's been arrested, and his club has said that he will not be playing any games or training until further notice, or until this whole situation is cleared up. But if there's been things posted on social media, then I mean the young lady must really think that she's got a really good case, because the police have looked at that and then they've gone and arrested him. Do you know what I mean? So it's not looking good for young Mason Green. Do you know what I mean? It's not. Mason Green. It is Mason Green. It's not Mason Greenwood. Mason Green, I believe. I don't know, right? But it's not looking good for him anyway. Do you know what I mean? And like, he plays for England as well. So if this really goes bad, then his career will be done. Whatever game was his last one, that would be his last ever professional game that he plays. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not really, there's no coming back from this type of thing. Especially not to the professional leagues anyway. You know what I mean? There's always a chance on the much lower leagues, but after he's been to prison, obviously. That's if he does it. That's if he's charged and convicted. So there's obviously a long way to go before that. But until all of that situation is settled, he will not be playing football. That's so that's a fact. Daniela Westbrook, right, it will be taking legal action against EastEnders, right, because they want to replace her character. They said, we want the character going to a different direction. They say no, it's because she's a damn cokehead and they don't want you back on the show. Right? That's what it is, right? You just look at some people, who have had right, everything for them just laid out on a plate, laid out for them nicely. Do you know what I mean? Nice and easy. And you think, how the hell do you go and just fuck it all up just like that? Do you know what I mean? It's so many people, just so many of them. I mean, you just look at Mr. Andrew Windsor, right, for example. Do you know what I mean? And then Daniela Westbrook wants to, she's thinking about she said she's going to put it in the hands of her legal team, but I'm sure her ass is broke, so I want to know what kind of legal team she has. Because I'm sure she hasn't. I'm sure she's broke. So unless her latest flame, or whoever it is, right, is maybe a legal buff, then I wonder where she'll get the money from anyway to do that. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm quite sure that I'm sure she's broke. Do you know what I mean? She just lives the high life, but I'm sure deep down she hasn't got any money really. Do you know what I mean? Right, so look, we have it's looking like we're going to have a major U-turn right? And I hear what you're all saying, like, what, another one? In the words of Brenda from Bristol, and I love alliterations, right? It looks like the government's going to make a U-turn on mandatory vaccines for the NHS workers, because it's up to 80,000 workers who can be lost on, I believe it's Thursday, right, where the new laws, where the new law will come in and say, well, you need to be, it's a mandatory vaccination, right, or you get your motherfucking ass out of here. So they're looking at another U-turn. Obviously, this will come in handy for Boris Johnson to, because well, he thinks it will come in handy for him. Do you know what I mean? We're just, I'm sure most people just look at Boris Johnson and think to themselves, yeah, well, everything now you're doing to try and save your own motherfucking skin. That's everything he's doing. That's what he's doing, try and save his own skin. Right, so so the social care workers, right, who was all sacked last year, right, a lot of the politicians are saying, oh well, they'll all be able to get their jobs back, and say, well, you don't think most of them, the majority of them would have moved on? The majority of them would have moved on. They would have moved on to other jobs. Do you know what I mean? So because me. I am pro-vaccine, right, but anti-mandatory vaccines. Right? Nobody should be made to take a vaccine, right, that they're not comfortable with. Nobody should be made to do that. Do you know what I mean? If they're not comfortable with that particular vaccine, then they shouldn't be made. They shouldn't be made to take it. But it's it's the same way, yeah. That if you was going somewhere where you could catch yellow fever. Right, and you said, well, I'm not comfortable with catching with the vaccine for yellow fever, and you said that I'm not comfortable, so I'm not taking it. I said, okay, well, you don't take it, but you ain't coming to our country, right? So I mean, there's obviously a slight difference, because if you want to go there, then you take that vaccine. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what vaccines anyone would need to come to this country. I don't know. I don't think there are any, to be honest. Right, yeah, I don't really think there are any to come to this country. Can't really. Do you know what I mean? I suppose because I think everyone in the world, every country in the world does your routine in it. So your measles, mumps, and rubella. I think every country in the world does that. So I don't really think over here. I think to come here it's literally going to be vaccine free. Do you know what I mean? Because we haven't got we don't have man eating mosquitoes. Oh, sorry, killer mosquitoes. Mosquitoes, right? Ours, we call them gnats, but they're the same thing, right? But or some people might call them midges, but they're the same thing, right? Or they like human blood. Right, but in other countries they pass major diseases. In this country, I don't think we've had any. We don't think we've had anything like that. And yes, and obviously our water, our even though our water companies, right, aren't very good in getting rid of the raw sewage that we provide them every day, right? Even though they're not very good at getting rid, but our water, right, is probably one of the best in the world. Do you know what I mean? When it comes down to our water quality that comes through our taps, right, is probably one of obviously the people like the Welsh may disagree, right, because you can drink water straight out of their rivers and their streams, right, but our water seems to be some of the best in the world. So we haven't really got I've gone off on one. We haven't really got anything you need to be vaccinated to come to this country for, really, other than obviously measles, mumps, and rubella. Right. So as I said, it's expected, right, a major U-turn, right. And you think, well, wouldn't have been better, right, to have said to the social care, right, well, it would have been better to extend the social cares to the same time as the NHS, right? Because there must have been thoughts that there could be a U-turn at some stage. There might be a U-turn at some stage. So there must have been thoughts about that. So it might have been better to have done that in the first place. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, remember, the social care in this country is in the hands of the private sector, and the NHS is in the care of like the public sector. So there's a difference there. So there is a difference there as well. But a lot of these guys in the social, in the social sector have had to send back their contracts to the government, just give back their contracts, because obviously they can't afford. They couldn't afford to come in with all the new COVID laws and all that. And all the new rules, a lot of them couldn't afford to keep it going. Do you know what I mean? You probably have to have a lot less people in their care homes. If you had a care home that could hold 24 people, probably would be holding 12 people now. Do you know what I mean? Plus, all the new stuff, what you had to put around the building to make it COVID secure. So a lot of them have had to hand their have literally just and then obviously on top of that, right, losing loads of staff as well last year. So a lot of them have just had to hand back their contracts. A lot of them have gone bankrupt and all that. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of those good news stories, the government are not really telling you. The police, the police are disappointed that the public don't like them. Now, you see, I think it's probably things like that they're only solving like 5% of burglaries, right? But when you got to just look at, if you look at the government look at the police, as a business, and obviously so the cost of always got to be kept down, and what they can do with cameras, right? They can do with cameras. They can they don't need police officers for, so they can they've got eyes on all high streets and all that type of thing. Do you know what I mean? So they don't really need police officers, all those type of things, But the police is not they're not in there, they're not on their own with that. Do you know what I mean? Because people don't like the government and people don't trust the government either. Do you know what I mean? Because politics is in a really, really bad way. If you just look at you look at how politicians have the politician who come out and said the police don't investigate crimes retrospectively, and you think to yourself, well, they do. Every single crime in the world is retrospectively investigated, because it's something that someone's done, right? Whether it's 10 minutes before or whether it's 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years ago, doesn't matter. It's all retrospective. Do you know what I mean? Unless they're going to start, this is going to start arresting people for future crimes that you're going to commit. And say, well, yeah, we'll come to arrest you because in 3 years' time, right, you are going to drive away, right, with a tank full of petrol on purpose. So we've come to arrest you for it now. Do you know what I mean? So every crime is retrospective. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. Right. I don't know if you saw the interview with Trevor Phillips with Liz Truss, and all Liz Truss could virtually say was that with everything, right, where Liz Truss, where they're asking her questions, sorry, I forgot to give her her real title, right, which is Pencil Neck Tin Lizzie Truss, right. So Liz Truss, right, was on with Trevor Phillips, right, and it's her response to all the questions was basically that Britain is the fastest growing economy in the G7. So we're talking about that the cost of the price of the cost of living. Britain is the fastest growing economy in the G7. Right? The new national insurance tax rise. Britain is the fastest growing country in the G7. Everything with Liz Truss, do you know what I mean? And you think to yourself, what are you asking her for? She took a flight worth £500,000. Do you really think that she's going to be in touch with commoners, right? And they're saying, oh well, it's going to be £300 a year, right, for the new that's what it's going to cost. Like that's probably £300 a year is probably like people on minimum wage. That's what it's going to cost, right, for the new national insurance rise, right? So they're saying that's like 6 weeks, like £300, or 6 weeks of shopping. I say, well, what? I know that 6 weeks of shopping, £300. £300. So what the fuck are you people just eating rice? What is that? I don't know. What the hell what are you eating? Right? Because if I'm not mistaken, that's 50 quid a week. Do you know what I mean? 6 weeks, £300. So is people's shopping bill £50 a week? I don't know. I was confused. I was confused by their figures on that. Do you know what I mean? I was very confused by their figures on that. That £300 can amount to 6 weeks of shopping. So really, what the hell are you doing? You going to a wholesalers? Is that what you're buying your shit? You're buying all tin stuff from a wholesalers, right? And some Brexit news, right? The government, right, is to overhaul outdated laws copied over from after Brexit. And this should save businesses £1 billion in red tape. You think, what about the 100 billion that's been added to the? So if they're just taking off 1 billion, it's going to take 1 billion off. So, and I'm sure that businesses are saying thank you very much for that, and this is most welcome. I'm sure that's what business is saying. Right. And UK arms manufacturers, right, have been hit by long delays. And this is because of Brexit. But this is what one of the leading bodies told MPs last week, right? That because of Brexit, right, they've been hit by like 6 months delays, right, in moving their weapons of mass destruction, right, so those weapons can go to other countries and go and murder people, right? So it's taken longer. It's a bit of a blessing, really, right? So it's taken a bit longer because that Britain is one of the major producers, obviously, of weapons around the world. Do you know what I mean? That's this is the arms trade, right, is major in this country. It is major. Do you know what I mean? They even have they even have conventions in this country. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, people go down there and as the delegates would say, go and make a nuisance of themselves. Down there, trying to stop people from buying their weapons of mass destruction, so they can kill more than one person at a time, right? But yeah, so they're having major problems in that. Do you know what I mean? And the UK's devolved administrations, right, have warned that Boris Johnson's plans to cut red tape by removing the legacy of the EU laws, right, will drive a coach and horses through the country's constitutional settlements. Oh, the story that I just read a minute ago, where it looked like it was a good news story, but no, it's really a bad news story, because they're saying, this will be really, really bad news for all of us, right? So, and obviously the Welsh and the Scottish delegations have been making a lot of phone calls about this, saying, listen, this is going to be, you can't be doing this. It's going to make things even worse. Right, but obviously Boris Johnson has, someone must have said to Boris Johnson, oh well, if you do this, if you cut all, if you get rid of all these laws, right, then so someone must have said that to Boris Johnson somewhere along the line. He must have thought, oh, this looks good, cutting £1 billion worth of red tape. But you know how it works. They cut £1 billion worth of red tape over here. That will make £10 billion worth of red tape over there. That's how this shit works, and that's how it's worked from the beginning. Anyway, guys, this is By Any Means Necessary. I'm the MC John Ribs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.